Welcome to Inside the Game on the National Soccer Network. Now, here are your hosts, Jonathan Turner and Nathan Wangler.
You are back inside the game, episode 162 here on the National Soccer Network. Nate Wangler alongside Ryan Glinsky. Look at us, split screen today. You have been a co-host more often than not on this show, I feel like, over the course of the last few weeks, pissing off fan bases along the way. I posted your rant yesterday about Minnesota. You know what the funniest thing is one of the players I've gotten closest to over the course of our baseball season. His name's Austin Murray. He's actually from Minnesota. His brother's very good hockey player, lives out in Minnesota State. I don't know if he would necessarily agree with your assessment, but this guy, I mean, he kind of reiterated the fact that they got hockey down. Okay, they do have one thing down. They got one thing good going on in Minnesota. You know, and with your hairdo, I feel like you would fit right in. I'm just saying, I feel like you could be a hockey player if you really wanted to. But what's up, Ryan? Producing another show here today. Obviously, a number two again. And a lot of interesting stuff to get to. We'll talk about that here in a moment. But rolling into it, no Jonathan Turner for those of you guys watching here today. But yeah, man, I mean, you got the hockey look. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I do. I do need a new haircut. I think I'm getting it tomorrow at some point in the morning.
You don't like the flow?
No, I don't. This is too long. This is really long.
Okay, I mean,
so
yeah.
I need to get it trimmed down a little bit. Mech Jack already in the chat. He goes, Minnesota lives in your head now. Yes, they do, Mech Jack. Yes, they do. I'm just kidding. No, they don't.
Red free. Does the U.S. men's national team play in Minnesota at all? Are we going to take a trip to Minnesota? What is there to go to in Minnesota? I mean, we could.
I have no idea.
Mech Jack, you got to set us up though, dude. If we're going to bring the show out there.
Yeah, for real.
A little remote show.
JT is in our live TikTok chat. He says, "Good morning, gents." And he liked the live stream, so shout out JT. But yeah, if you are watching us on Roku, YouTube, Instagram, whatever, we're all over the place. Also on TikTok as well. That is something. Mech Jack with a funny one again. This hair wouldn't even register at the state high school hockey tournament.
No, nor would mine. And that's my point. You gotta enjoy the length. You gotta enjoy the curl. You gotta enjoy it while you got it. Because eventually you're gonna get here. I don't know if you see this going on. These are called cul-de-sacs, Ryan Glinsky. You know, they go that, and then. I mean, I'm gonna have the ring of death at some point in my life here. So
Oof.
I just have to, yeah.
Oof.
Yeah.
I don't want to even think about
scary?
that. I don't even want to think about that. But no, it's really funny. Before this week, I couldn't tell you the last time I thought of Minnesota. Maybe when University of Michigan played University of Minnesota in basketball or football.
Sure.
But this week has been so much Minnesota. I might have to listen to Minnesota by Lil Yachty on the way home. So I haven't heard that song in a while, so we may have to do that. But yeah, we've got an awesome show lined up for you as well. It's been a host pitching chaos this week in terms of our show. We had one traditional show that was yesterday, and then you were on the road with the Whitecaps. Shout out to you guys. Got one of these. And then now it's you and me. So we've had the whole 9 yards. Or the only one would be different was if it was just you and JT. So we've had a host chaos type of week. But hopefully next week we can get into a little bit normal, a little normalcy around here.
Yeah, that's called crossover season is what that's called. But yeah, you're right. No, title number 7 for the Caps. Like I said, great. Also good to just kind of get away from baseball season too. But Tigers are on to something. We don't have to talk about that on here because I know obviously we got more relevant things to talk about in the soccer world. But there's a lot of there's some good stuff happening there. Maybe they're in free fall to major league level right now, but hopefully they can turn that ship around. But yes, coming up on the show here today. First of all, I want to mention what we got coming up next week. We've had a lot of great coaches that have made their way onto our show. If you haven't seen those clips, Again, go to our social media pages. You can find National Soccer Network anywhere across the social media world. But here's a look at our stack for next week. Tony DeLuz, the Wake Forest women's soccer coach, joining us on Monday. Been doing a lot of Wake Forest work lately. They've kind of stepped their game up over there. Right now, getting nationally recognized on the men's side. So we'll get the opportunity to talk to Tony over on the women's side again coming up on Monday. Kevin Boyd on Tuesday, Milwaukee women's soccer. Sean Burke will be joining us on Wednesday. Buffalo women's soccer. A little Maction, Ryan. Looks like you get to ask your CMU question again. I love the MAC, by the way. That's my favorite conference in America.
Out.
I just got to throw that out there. Just saying. Andy Stutz, another MAC honoree. Ball State women's soccer coming up the following day. And then we wrap up the week with Gareth Elliott out of the University of Rhode Island men's soccer, who got a big win in the other of the football. Actually beat Eastern Michigan out of the MAC. So that's pretty cool. Because I think they're an FCS school in football or something like that. But anyways, stacked lineup coming up next week.
Yeah, 100%. And we have a couple other guests. I'm sure that'll be lined up the week after that and the week after that. So we got a ton of coaches interviews, especially at the collegiate level, trying to branch out a little bit more to the professional level. JT says in the TikTok chat, women's team at Wake Forest is ranked. So shout out to them. They get a horn.
Woo!
Wake Forest, they've been really good at communicating because Tony DeLuz was supposed to be on this Monday. So this previous Monday he was supposed to be on, but had a scheduling mishap, but we got him on for next week. So Wake Forest has been great, with head coach Bobby Muss and now Tony DeLuz. So Wake Forest, we've been actually with Rhode Island, we will have a new conference that we will have a chance to interview. I believe they're out of the A10, I think. So we've had the Horizon League so far, the MAC, the ACC, the Big Ten, and then now A10 with Rhode Island. If I'm missing someone, my apologies. I don't think we've had high school. We've had high school on as well. So, but no, we've had a ton of different coaches from different conferences and levels. So it's exciting. Maybe one day we can get Mauricio Pochettino on here. Maybe.
we're building up there, eventually one of these days. But yeah, the Atlantic 10 conference, they're out of University of Rhode Island. But it's it's something that we enjoy doing on here. And listen, this is something that we've always wanted to build up to, is having people on consistently to talk about what they're going through in the coaching world. And obviously it's been a wild start to the 2025 season in the soccer scene, not only here domestically with the college game, but we're also on this show going to talk a little bit about our American overseas overview. Obviously, we've been keeping a close eye on a lot of the United States men's national team players who could get the call up, who's going to be a key part of this upcoming friendly schedule before the World Cup. Because Ryan, as we mentioned, they stacked it. They went out of their way to get some really, really good squads. You talk about they're going to play Portugal,
possibly Belgium.
I believe they're going to play possibly Belgium as well. What is it, Uruguay? Who they're playing? I think
I believe
has
in the
two World Cups to their names.
Uruguay.
Yeah, I believe.
Yeah, it was a long
time ago. But hey, it still counts. All right,
it always counts. It always counts.
England's lone one was what, 1950 something? I don't know.
So So actually, we have a question coming in from Mac Jack in the TikTok chat before we get to our first commercial break. But we'll answer this question. Are you concerned, Nate, are you concerned about the U.S. men's national team going into the World Cup?
Yeah, of course I am. Listen, we have one win in how long? And it was a 2-0 win over Japan, in which they weren't starting some of their best options. And we talked about that on the show. And I don't think people see that as the be-all, end-all. It felt good. I think it took the pressure off of our shoulders a little bit. It's cool that you and JT got to be a part of that and to see that. But is my concern level at the same place that it was going into those two international friendlies, or I'll even do you one better after the South Korea game? Is it at the same level? No, and only because I think they may have figured something out in that game, because they switched things up. They switched up the formation. Obviously, they switched up the personnel. I thought they found a good combination in that game, and I thought they looked better. However, there are still players that are not playing actively right now with the U.S. men's national team who I would imagine, without a doubt, should be on that starting team coming up in the 2026 World Cup. So I am concerned, yes, but sometimes there's so many question marks surrounding exactly what this looks like that I don't know whether or not to give you how to give you a concrete answer one way or the other. The one thing that I will say is that we just have to figure out where our goal is as in terms of expectations for this team. And we've mentioned that before, Ryan. Like, if our expectation is that we're going to win a World Cup, like, we're going to be sorely mistaken. It's not going to happen, okay? And that's okay. That's okay, all right? Because we know who we are, right? We have to accept this is the changing yourself. You have to first accept who you are before you can go about making life better, okay, and seeing life in a new light. If our expectation is that we're going to go in and win a World Cup, we're sorely mistaken. But do we win an elimination game? Do we get out of group stage? Because, again, do we know exactly who we're playing? What the group is?
No, not yet.
Exactly. So we don't, yeah. So expectation setting is also important. But I'm sure you have something to add about this before we cut out.
Yeah, so our 4 games that are, I know the Portugal game is scheduled, but it's not on the exact date or anything, but we have 4 games. And there's 2 games that I'm really looking forward to that'll, kind of set the expectation. I think we need to set our bar. Mekchak pointed out in the TikTok chat that we need to at least make the knockout rounds to feel good about our show, and I 100% agree with you. We should make that should be the bare minimum for this men's national team. That should always be the bare minimum. But My expectation is they make the knockouts. That's what I expect from them. They have the talent to do so. It's whether or not it gets all brought together as one, because they have individual performances that are really good, and we'll talk about some of those later on in the show. But there's 2 games I'm really looking forward to in this October and November window. Is the first one on October 10th against Ecuador. That's to me is kind of like, if you're kind of looking in the group stage, that would be a swing game with whoever wins that game would eventually advance and go on to the next round. And then on November 18th, on October 14th, they play Australia. And then November 15th, they play Paraguay. But November 18th, a big one as well, because that's Uruguay. That is kind of the level of, that's the 1 seed in the group. The U.S. will never be a 1 seed in these groups. They just won't. And that is kind of the level that they need to really get to, is they need to see how they compare against a really good team like Uruguay. But again, very, very still concerning for the World Cup. But oh my God, we have 464 likes in the TikTok chat. I wonder who is sending out all these likes. But yeah, 475.
Someone by the name of Jonathan blowing us up?
Maybe. I mean, we've only had 10 viewers. But yeah, we'll
so
be back.
Yeah, there's a lot to cover there. If you want to see our thoughts on USA Japan, on the international window, our thoughts on the South Korea game, we broke all that down. Again, check out our social media page, like, follow, subscribe, go back, look at that. We gave you our big 3 takeaways from the international window. There's a lot to like, but there's a reason why we continue about these overseas overviews and getting a look at what these players are doing in their clubs and how that might fit. And the one thing that I'll say, Ryan, is that the players that are actively here, at least in that game against Japan, are forcing Mauricio Pochettino to think twice about decisions that he was originally going to make. And he said that in the media. Zendejas has forced him to completely relook at the way that he wanted to do things because the way that he operated in that Japan game. And mind you, both him and Flo Balogun were only in their 2nd game ever playing for Mauricio Pochettino. So these are like brand new players to poach. So there's a lot to talk about there. I know we want to get into a discussion on who the striker might be. I know we got to get to our first break, but we got that coming up. We're also going to take a little bit of a sharp turn on the show today because we haven't talked a ton about this. I think we have in a roundabout way, mentioning what's going on in America, mentioning current events. Obviously, it was kind of a dark week last week, and we took the opportunity to talk about that. And normally we don't engage in political discourse. We don't engage in socioeconomics and where are we as a country. But JT even said yesterday, I mean, he talked about the mentality of young kids and where they think our country is at right now. And I said it straight up, and I meant it. We have a mental health crisis in this country. And believe it or not, that touches professional athletes too. I know that you look at them and you think you get to play a game for a living. That ain't too bad. And believe me, getting to talk for a living ain't too bad either. but that doesn't mean that we don't deal with those same exact issues. And Diego Luna had a recent piece, talked about some of his mental health issues. And obviously this is a kid that I think could be the heartbeat of the U.S. men's national team. Maybe not a starter, but I think he's certainly someone who should be on that team in 2026. So we'll also cover that as well. And then we'll get into our question of the day. But that's coming up next. Again, our American Overseas Overview on the other side of this break. It's episode 162 on Inside the Game.
Flint City Bucks are Michigan's top soccer franchise with 4 national championships, 9 conference titles, and 15 Great Lakes Division titles. They have produced 107 players for Major League Soccer, and they focus on attracting top talent and shaping soccer's future. Michigan Bucks Academy joins NLS Next new competition tier starting in September of 2025. This offers elevated levels of play and flexibility for high school participation. The Academy will provide premier development, high-performance training, and exposure to scouts through regional tournaments and MLS Next events. For more information on tryouts, training programs, and key updates as we prepare for our first season in MLS Next new tier, visit MichiganBucksAcademy.com.
And we're back at it. Episode 162 of Inside the Game. Welcome back in. Nate Wangler alongside our executive producer / co-host / content creator / guy who gets in contact with coaches, Ryan Glinsky, Mr. Swiss Army knife over there on the show with us here today, our number 2.
And / Minnesota hater.
Slicing and dicing. Speaking of Minnesota, I know we wanted to get into our American Overseas Overview, and we will certainly do that here in a second, but I wanted to touch on very quickly, we have must-see MLS and USL matchups coming up. Wanted to chat on those really quick, and there's a lot of good ones. You're talking about some of the drama going on in Major League Soccer, and it just continues to get better. But here's a look at those that we have coming up. Orlando City taking on Nashville SC. That one coming up Saturday, 7:30 start time, Eastern time for that game. Austin FC against the Seattle Sounders. I'm not going to lie. I think I became a little bit of Seattle Sounders fan after they beat Inter Miami that entire segment. So I've been following that team a little bit more closely. Obviously, Christian Roldan getting a chance on the U.S. men's national team, and we can chat about him in a little bit. I think people have been unrightfully critical of the guy. I think he's looked okay, me personally, but anyways, we'll chat on that here in a moment. Austin FC, Seattle Sounders, that one's 7 o'clock Eastern time coming up on Sunday. And then also on Sunday, the late one, 9 o'clock Eastern time, we got LAFC taking on Real Salt Lake. In that matchup, Sun Hung Kim has been ripping apart Major League Soccer. More on that coming up a little bit later in the show. You obviously have a really good question of the day, and I think people will get into that. It does regard center around Major League Soccer and what the dynamics of that league is. But what are your takeaways from some of those key matchups we got coming up?
So first off, got to give another shout out to Mac Jack in the chat. He's great. He says, you know who else beat Inter Miami? The Loons, Minnesota United beat them. So shout out to you, Mac Jack. I did come on you Loons
Okay,
in
all
the
right.
chat for you.
I'll give you that. If you beat the villain, you get a shout out.
So is that your Minnesota United, Inter Miami for you? Is that your Minnesota United?
Yeah, a little bit. Nah, but I was complimentary of you talking about Seattle, like my Minnesota, or
Yeah,
the Inter Miami is my Minnesota.
Yeah, Inter Miami is your Minnesota.
Oh yes, yeah.
So we'll have to figure out who
yeah.
JT's MLS hated team is.
No, we talked about yesterday the Americanization of the sport of soccer, and that's one of the things. You know, you stack one team with all the superstars. They remind me of the Lakers a lot because the Lakers had superstars, but they were all old. You don't remember
like
when they had, like AD could never stay healthy, and then they had Russ, who was old and couldn't really do much, and obviously LeBron slowing down. That's kind of what Inter Miami reminds me of. But they're going to grab all the headlines because they have all the superstars. So, I'm not trying to talk down on them here, but we see these organizations in every other sport. It's the Dodgers in baseball, it's the Lakers in basketball, whatever. So, yes, I certainly would say that.
But looking at these MLS games, Orlando is looking to secure a home playoff spot for the playoffs, and Nashville, of course, coming off that big win in the Open Cup. They'll be playing in the finals. They, of course, knocked off Philadelphia Union earlier this week. However, their MLS form is kind of faltered. That's why I picked Philadelphia. But Nashville, trying to pick themselves back up. Austin FC, sorry, Mech Jack. Sorry, man. They of course, beat you guys in the Open Cup earlier this week. And Mech Jack already mentioned that Phillies had a bad week. But Austin FC looking to do that as well. And then looking over at LAFC, Heung-min Son, he's kind of centered around our question of the day. But again, LAFC can also clinch a playoff spot with a win or a draw. And then Real Salt Lake is trying to stay in the MLS playoff contention, or contend for the playoff spot is what I'm trying. Can't speak right now. But then we also have the USL must-see matches as well. That's what I was trying to find for our next segment. But Nate, tell us about our must-see USL matches.
Must-see USL matches coming up. Let's take a look at them. Hartford Athletic taking on Pittsburgh Riverhounds. They're actually hosting that matchup Saturday, 7 o'clock for that game. Got a few more to wrap up the weekend. Tampa Bay Rowdies. By the way, I love that name. That's probably my favorite. North Carolina FC Saturday at 7:30. Then Colorado Springs Switchbacks hosting Sacramento Republic. That's Saturday at 8 o'clock coming up in the USL. So there's a look at our key matchups, both on the MLS and in the United Soccer League. Any thoughts on the USL matchups before we get into our overseas overview, Mr. Ryan Glinsky?
Oops, forgot the little mispunch there. My fault. Again, playoff seeds are on the line in all these different games, so they mean a ton, especially in our playoff format. But yeah, not a ton to talk about other than they're must wins for everyone. So yeah, I mean that's kind of when it comes down to the end of the season, and especially with playoff seeding. Playoff seeding, I think, does matter in American sports. But Mech Jack has mentioned again, dude. I love Mech Jack. He's going
to convert us into Minnesota fans. I think that's what his ultimate goal is here with blowing you up.
That's fine. He says he's over the Open Cup loss. He's on to chasing the Supporters Shield, and you guys do have a shot at winning that as well, and of course, making some noise in the playoffs with your seeding. But yeah, let's go into the overseas overview, which I liked. That's your name, by the way, Nate. That is, I just said Americans abroad, but I really liked this overseas overview. Nate, you can, see, how did you come up with this name?
No, we just gotta. I like alliteration, Ryan. That is something that is a broadcaster trick. I actually just worked on it yesterday. Name recognition, because I know we both do hockey and obviously soccer too. Because sometimes you're not going to notice who a player is initially, and it's good to memorize names. It's good to know who's out on the field. So you associate certain things with certain words. So you like to make it flow. You like to make it sound good. So American overseas overviews sound good. But there's a lot of different players who are making waves, and I think that's interesting about the start of this year. I think it's certainly been the case. And so who do we have that's impressed lately?
Yeah, so this, of course, started Champions League week off in Europe, and a couple players played midweek for, domestically as well. So not everyone here was in the Champions League, and of course, not every single Champions League team was in action this week. But starting us off with PSV in the Champions League, Serginho Dest played a full 90 minutes, had a match rating 3 out of 10. Ricardo Pepi, after his brace this past weekend, 74 minutes. Again, I think they lost 4-0 in the Champions League, so you're not really going to have any great match ratings. And then Tim Weah, 78 minutes, 1 goal, first American ever to score in the Bernabeu. Woo! Made a TikTok on that. The Real Madrid fans got after me a little bit. The American Real Madrid fans got a little bit after. They're like, "You didn't dominate him. We won 2-1. You won off a PK from Mbappe." That's classic Real Madrid. Classic Real Madrid is winning off a PK like that. But yeah, they did lose 2-1 in that game to Real Madrid. Chris Richards played this midweek in the Carabao Cup against, I believe, Millwall. So they were a league below them in the Premier, or down in the Championship. Chris Richards scored a goal off a header off a corner. The game did go to a PK shootout after a 1-1 draw for the first 90 minutes. He did convert that penalty. 7 out of 10 match rating. Malik Tillman, 51 minutes in the Champions League draw yesterday against Copenhagen, 2-2, 5 out of 10 match rating. But I do want to touch a little bit on Malik Tillman after that. Gio Reyna, he's in the news a lot. A 74-minute start against Werder Bremen, 4-0 loss for Borussia Mönchengladbach to Werder Bremen. However, Werder Bremen does. Oh, Mick Jack says our text is cut off on the left there, but yeah, we'll get it right back to you so you can see this all. Gio Reyna, 74 minutes, no match rating that I could find on him. But from what I was reading on Twitter, he did have an impressive debut for Gio Reyna standards, and the coach and fans were a little bit impressed with him. But before I get your thoughts real quick, Malik Tillman, I know I mentioned 5 out of 10, 51 minutes, just made the 30 million or 40 million pound move over to Bayer Leverkusen. Let's just point this out. Erik ten Hag just got sacked from Leverkusen earlier, or about a week or so ago. They gutted the whole team, like Frimpong. He's gone to Liverpool. So a lot of those key pieces, Xabi Alonso gone as well, the manager. So a lot of key pieces from this Leverkusen are gone. But again, just give Malik Tillman time. He has a 30 million, 40 million, I forgot the fee, has a price tag of that range on him. Give him some time. He's a quality player. And again, it's a Champions League game. They drew to Copenhagen. So again, give him a little bit of time. Malik Tillman will get it going. But let me know your thoughts on this.
Malik Tillman, was nominated for CONCACAF Men's Player of the Year award. This is a player that clearly has proven himself on the international scale. And I talked about it during my Gold Cup review, that Tillman impressed me. He was one of my top 3 players that impressed me out of that entire stretch in the Gold Cup, and really, and recently in just his form with the international team. So for speaking from that degree, I still think Malik Tillman is a great player. I don't think that takes anything away from him. I think sometimes we forget about situation. And I actually had a really long conversation with someone else in the sports world recently about this. And it was more notably about football, American football. And we know that those are 2 different sports. But when you find yourself in bad situations, you have a little bit more sympathy for a bad kid if he comes from a really bad household, right? So like Malik Tillman being in a situation where it feels like the fire is rising and the foundation is collapsing in on itself, I don't think that's anything to hold against Malik Tillman. I think he's still someone who's in great form and someone who would be a key part of this U.S. men's national team. I do wanted to say really quickly, though, I think if there's anybody that has impressed me really the most amongst the rest of them, Chris Richards has been on a tear, in an absolute tear in 2025. And I just like the way he carries himself too. My man has a social media presence. He seems to be out there. He seems to be active in that sphere. But Richards has been, he's been a dog in 25. And I don't know what the stats are right now. Obviously, you put him up on your screen. But he was also great in the Gold Cup. He was part of my top 3 that I took away. But he has been, even for the men's team, he's been outstanding. What I will say before I let you, wrap up your thoughts on what you think the international picture looks like and maybe some of your other takes, because I know you've put out a lot of TikTok videos lately, and thank you, by the way, talking about this U.S. men's national team, because people are trying to put this together. And because everybody has a different idea on what this team should look like. Every single individual person has a different idea, a different lineup, who fits where. This is America. This is soccer in America, baby. We don't know who we have. We don't know where they fit, but we got a bunch of good dudes. Anthony Robinson, I feel like, is the missing piece to this U.S. men's national team. This is the thing when people ask me if I'm concerned. Am I concerned about our ability to go out and compete? Yes, because we still need our best pieces to all be on the field. Now, I think Weah should fit into there somewhere. Gio Reyna is still a question mark on my mind. Obviously, I think Chris Richards and Malik Tillman both deserve a spot. I don't know if that's a starting spot or where that is. A lot of these players, I think, are certainly in the mix. But Anthony Robinson is the missing piece for this U.S. men's national team. If we get Jedi back, I think that completely changes the complexion of what this team can accomplish in the World Cup. I really do genuinely believe that. But knee injuries are something that you shouldn't mess around with. And that's the scariest part about it, because he's coming back from a knee injury. And so I think when people get on Mauricio Pochettino about, hey, the selections that you're making and the players you're putting out there, I know it's weird to think that maybe our manager is kind of on the same level as the rest of America, where we don't know what we have and we're just kind of trying out new things. But a player like that can give you a really good idea of what you have very quickly. So I think getting Jedi back is the most important thing for this U.S. men's national team right now. But a good overview nonetheless on what's going on overseas. I know that we were all about Josh Sargent for a while there. I don't think he's the guy for the U.S. men's national team. Maybe he deserves a spot on the team. I don't know where you fall on all that. But I think at the end of the day, if there's one dude we need that can swing this pendulum, it's Anthony Robinson. That's the way I see it right now.
Yeah, I didn't think of Anthony Robinson, but he's like, it's weird to think that American, a position in the league, is like a top 3 left back, or yeah, that's where they had him as, and he had
top
the most
top 5, yeah.
He had the most assists by a defender a year ago, or for Fulham, and he captained them 18 times. So again, there's a potential captain if we don't want Pulisic to be that leader. And I know we've been really critical of Christian Pulisic. I agree with Meg Jack in the chat. Sargent deserves a spot. I think Sargent. So I'm an Arsenal fan, and Mikel Arteta, the manager, has been given a little bit of. He's been getting made fun of a little bit in the chat, or in the media, because on Tuesday when they won their Champions League game against Atletico Bilbao, he mentioned that he wants his subs to be finishers. He goes, our bench players are just as important as our starters. We want 20, 30 great minutes out of them, and I prepared them that way in training and, in their head, so that they know 20, 30 minutes, you got to finish this game or impact the game and win it. And that's exactly what they did. Yeah. 2 substitutes scored goals. And I think if we can have Sargent be a finisher for us, whether that's just holding the ball up, killing some time in a 1-goal lead, or, being in the action to try to grab that late equalizer, or try to get that insurance goal, I think Sargent absolutely deserves a spot on this team. I don't believe he's a starter. I don't believe Sargent should be a starter for this team. I think that he should be a bench player, a backup striker, whether that's between him and Pepe, because I still think Balogun's a starter. I still think he is. But Anthony Robinson, he had a pre-existing knee injury, had surgery towards the end because Fulham, wasn't going to, win anything in the last season. But I think he is a very integral part, those overlapping runs. I think overloading that left side, that's the side that Pulisic is on, and Anthony Robinson, I hated him for a while. I really hated Anthony Robinson for a long time. But he's growing on me. But if we can, again, I still think Pulisic should play in the middle. But if a player like Malik Tillman or Gio Reyna can take that middle attacking role, I think that's just as beneficial, and still play Pulisic out wide and have Robinson. Do I want to say he's the missing piece? That's a tough one because he is integral. So I don't
Yeah.
know. I'll have to get back to you on that. I don't necessarily know if he's the missing piece.
Does that
but
make us World Cup contenders? No, that's
No,
not what I
he's
mean
not
by
making-
saying that. All right,
he
but
could be the difference that gets us out of the group stage into the knockouts and
I'm
maybe
saying.
win that round of 16 match. So yeah, we absolutely need Jedi. We absolutely do.
I think there's just players that make a difference and make a chance. I want to ask you one more question before we cut to break because I know we got to get to our mental health conversation and really good stuff coming from Diego Luna. And it's always good to have those talks, and you and I know this, and sometimes it's nice to take a little serious tone every now and again. Where do you think Gio Reyna fits into all this? Because if there's one individual I can think of in this entire picture of forming this roster and what all this looks like, Gio Reyna is tremendously talented. We know this. We also know who his dad is. Okay. Gio, I feel like, grabs a lot of the headlines when it comes to this team. And a lot of times that hasn't resulted in the play on the international level. You know, we live in a society of what have you done for me lately? Well, I don't know what Gio necessarily has done for us lately, but obviously he's done a lot for himself and his personal professional career. Where does Gio fit in all this?
It's just, I think it really just depends. He mentioned it a couple weeks ago. He talked with Pochettino and he basically said, I've got to perform. I have to perform this year for Borussia Mönchengladbach in the Bundesliga. Of course, there's still 2-3 for sure upcoming windows, and I know they'll have probably a couple of tune-up games against like Bolivia before the World Cup to get themselves ready. So he's got eight or 9 matches ready to go before the World Cup, and Gio Reyna currently I think is on the. He's not a start. I would say Reyna's on the outside looking in currently for the World Cup roster. He hasn't done much, and
wow,
but right now that's right now. However, if he performs, he had a good showing this past week against Werder Bremen. But I would say he's the wild card. I look at a guy like Jaden Ivey for the Pistons. He's a wild card because he's been hurt. We don't know exactly. We know he has potential. We don't know exactly what he's going to do for us on the professional level in terms of our teams, the Pistons and the U.S. men's national team. I think Reyna's just a wild card. If they can get Reyna to be a consistent player for Mönchengladbach in the Bundesliga, he's playing week in, week out, and they're good performances. I'm not saying he's just out there. He's just playing minutes. He's just out there. But if he can contribute and stay healthy, that's a big thing for him. If he can stay healthy, he's a wild card and could let us, maybe compete against a Uruguay, compete against the number 1 team in our group.
Always interesting stuff. We're going to talk about what our projected lineups are going to look like moving forward. I know JT has mentioned maybe trying to catch another international friendly. Obviously, we brought Japan and the United States to you up close and personal. I did not. I was on a trail in northern Michigan somewhere with no cell service, but I was trying my best to follow along. And obviously, you guys called me at the end of the night, and very cool. So we certainly got to continue to give you guys looks at that. And I don't know, man, I'm excited. I'm nervous. I'm everything else along those lines, but it's going to give us a lot to talk about. That's for darn sure. Leading up to the 26 World Cup. We're going to go into our second commercial break. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about some mental health. Yes,
experience the thrill that came like never.
Sorry about that. I had it lined up. Sorry about that. Go back.
No, that's great. Ryan's like, hard out. Out.
I didn't mean to do that.
9:38, we're out of here. Stop talking. No, I'm kidding. All right, coming up next, we're going to talk about some of these remarks from Diego Luna on mental health and how that impacts athletes and maybe a little bit our own personal journeys. That's coming up next on Inside the Game.
Experience the thrill that came like never before with NSN's Game Rewind. Dive into full match commentaries enhanced with cutting-edge dynamic graphics, letting you relive the highs and lows of your favorite matches in astonishing detail. Whether it's a championship win or a legendary play, NSN Game Rewind bridges the past and future with a broadcast experience designed to captivate. Call 586-304-4405 and start watching today.
We're back at it. Episode 162, Inside the Game. Nate Wangler. His name's Ryan Glinsky. It's actually his name. He's that way. We're backwards. Cut out a little bit early to break that last time around, but that's fine. Hey, we're getting the buttons down. Yeah, he's that way. No, that was hilarious. Mech Check apparently is our biggest fan in the world now. We made a brand new fan on Inside the Game, and my man has been a frequent flyer now, and apparently he had a good quote in the chat. Ryan Glinsky.
Yeah, he said a couple chats. He said right before the break, he said this was the perfect time to call out the cutting edge dynamic graphics. He also said Sargent deserves a spot on the men's roster, not as a starter, but on the bench and a roster. He also said about Gio Reyna, who's your dad and what does he do? That's what referring to our Gio Reyna discussion. He also said he could not get into the USL. Hey, if we become Minnesota United fans, maybe you should be a DCFC fan, Detroit City FC fan. Maybe we can work something out there. And then the last thing he says,
we
he
take
just
merch.
Yeah, we could. And he said
I'm just saying.
he cannot get excited about us beating Japan, and I completely understand that. Japan did not play all their starters, but it's a 2-0 win. Zendejas grabbed a really good goal, but they played well. You can only play who's out on the field. It's not like you're going to play the Lakers or, for instance, the Whitecaps. Let's talk about the Whitecaps. Midway through the season, you lose McGonigal, Clark, and Briseño moved too, right?
Yep, all at the same time.
But you still had to play on the second half, so I mean, it's not the team's fault that the 3 best players got moved up. So you just only play what you want. But again, I know Nate, you want to get into this Diego Luna discussion, and I think it's a really good discussion to have.
Yeah, winning matters to fans. That's what I'll say. I mean, it has now, and it will forever matter. It doesn't matter who's on the field. And JT has said it before. I've said it before. When you're in the sports world, you're in a results-oriented business. Okay, everything that you do in the success of where your life is and where it will go and everything else around that, whether it be family, friends, anything, is all dependent on how you perform. It's all dependent on what you're able to put up on the field, right? So I think it's easy to forget about the human being behind all of it. I think that's the interesting part about doing this job, Ryan, and I think you'll be more exposed to this as you go in your career, is you see the human element that goes behind what people see on the TV screens. It's always interesting to see these people outside of their normal element. And that, in my mind, and you talk about winning a championship, on the field, that's awesome. Like, having the banner is awesome, hanging it up, putting the pictures up, doing all that stuff. Like, nothing will ever replace that feeling and covering a team like that and being a part of that. But the greatest part about it is seeing them in those environments afterwards that you normally don't see them in that. That's not their natural habitat. And my favorite part about the postseason celebration or the championship celebration was that you have the owner and the founder of the team. You have the assistant GM as well as the president of the team. You have all the front office staff. You have all the players. You have the broadcasters and myself. You have everybody all in one area. And the manager, everybody, coaching staff, and we're all congregating. And it's in those moments that you learn a little bit more about who the person is, and you see them for that. And it makes you cheer for the individual more than necessarily cheer for the team. And I find that with myself with Major League Baseball, because I see players that have played for us that are playing for the Braves or playing for the Marlins or playing for, I'm a Tigers fan. I'm from Michigan. But I think more than that, I like to cheer for individuals because we've seen the individuals. And Diego Luna made himself a really easy individual to cheer for. He already did through the Gold Cup, but he had a quote recently. This is coming from Galazzo, and this was about 4 days ago. Quote, "Without therapy, speaking on mental health, I might be one of those names that make people go, oh yeah, or ah yeah, Diego Luna, what happened to him?" United States men's national team and Real Salt Lake star Diego Luna opened up about how much therapy is helping his battle with mental health issues and anxiety He goes, "I'm sad to admit this, but I only began to consider therapy when my mental health started to affect my soccer. At the start of 24, I wasn't scoring goals. I wasn't even playing regularly. I had also just become a father." He was a son at 19 years old. Like that. I mean, how old are you, Ryan?
22.
He's 22. My man he's 3 years younger than you when he had his kid. But this is something, and you just touched on how, growing up, handling your emotions and bottling it up and couldn't really let it go. And so he had a really bad panic attack. And you can see on the Players Tribune the entire story around that. I can't read it off right now. That'd probably take us past the 10 o'clock hour. But I think it is something important to mention, because I do think in the country and in the culture that we're in, because of how go we are, we don't stop to mention this part of the conversation. And it's hard for fans because they don't see this level, right? They see the numbers, they see the person, they see the results. They don't see everything else that goes into that. And I can relate to that because I've been in that position before too, because again, this is a results-based business. We get out what we put into it. And so for us to show up every day and do what we're doing, sometimes that puts us in a position to where we're going to feel those things. We're going to feel exhausted. We're going to feel like we're not quite doing what we need to do. And that's not even factoring in what goes in our personal life. So I just thought that was a really cool piece from Diego Luna talking about his mental health. And I'm sure you have something to share about this too, but yeah, I've been in that spot, and we don't have to go down that road, but it's just interesting to hear an actual athlete talk about it and to see athletes up front, when they have these mental skills coaches, these are conversations that are had. And so I think it's, if I wasn't already a fan of his scrappy fight, the way that he plays and the way that he represents the country and everything, I'm a fan now because of his willingness to open up about that. I just thought that was a really good story.
Yeah, it's a great story. And Mech Jack in our chat said therapy is great. Started as a teen and absolutely helped my hockey too. Everyone get therapy, and I agree with that. If you're struggling with something that doesn't make you any weak of a person, I feel like especially as a male, you kind of feel weak because you can't solve it yourself. Like you have to go to someone, and that's not the case. Like I lost a friend with his mental health. I did lose a friend that way, and we tried to get him some help and go to his parents, but that's a different story. But no, you should absolutely get therapy 100%. It's something that you should get, and it doesn't make you any weak of a person. And I kind of like when athletes kind of bring this up because it makes them a little bit more human, makes them a little bit more like us. I feel like we put athletes on a pedestal above us, because they're really, really good at a thing that that not everyone else can do. And, everyone gets to see it on a national level. Millions and millions of people get to see it. However, can they do their taxes as an accountant? Can they do, can they build transmissions for tanks? I'm just bringing my dad. That's what my dad does, transmissions for tanks. But no, they can't. So everyone is really good at one thing, just not millions and millions of people get to see it. And I like this because everyone goes through mental health. And, someone that, could be, always in a happy mood, joking around with everyone, he could be really struggling internally. And I think this is something that you absolutely, should, think as an everyday person, even if you're struggling with it, you should absolutely get mental health. And Luna, for his case, him, seeing this at such an early age, was able to do I think that speaks volumes not only of him, but his character. I think that's something that is going on. And I think as a nation, as the country of the United States, I think we do have a mental health crisis, with everything going on. And I think that's absolutely something that you should, speak volumes of and get some help for 100%. And I like that you brought this topic onto the show.
Yeah. And, it's not, it's not a pretty conversation. It's not going to get people up and arguing with each other. It's not, this isn't a hot take at all. I just think it was something that was worth bringing up because I do think it is important to humanize these players and realize that, they're people at the same exact time too. It is Mental Health Awareness Month in the month of September. So this is why I do think it is important at least to mention it on this show. And obviously everybody has a story out there. And if you ever want to share your story, that's why we have this show. Bring your story here to Inside the Game. We would love to tell it for you. But coming up next, we're going to take our final commercial break. We got our question of the day, and it's an interesting one. And a lot of people have said this, and I don't know if we've necessarily fought back against it. I think as Americans, we would like to admit that it's not the case, but it might just be the case, and for a various amount of reasons. We've talked about superstars coming over to the MLS. I'll let you ask that question coming up on the other end of the break. This is episode 162 and Inside the Game.
Are you ready to create unforgettable moments for your audience? NSN offers professional live streaming and full broadcast services tailored to your needs. From high-quality production to exceptional coverage, we ensure your game or event becomes a spectacle to remember. Book your next game with us today. Call 586-304-4405 to schedule your broadcast and let NSN bring the action to life like never before.
Welcome back in. It's episode 162 on Inside the Game. You still got me? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I still got
All
you.
right, there we are. Okay, all right. I turned my headphones down. Sorry. That's on
Oh,
me.
you're good.
Getting old, man. I'm forgetting how technology is working. I'm on the doorstep of 30. I'm starting to lose my mind. Anyways, here we go. Episode 162. We got our question of the day coming up. First off, I just wanted to say very quickly, thank you to everybody watching here today. We will be back with you guys Monday morning. We got another episode coming in for you. Again, we took a look at we can actually put that graphic up on the screen one more time of our lineup coming up next week. Is again, we are on a coaches tour across the United States in the sport of soccer. Woo! Tony DeLuz, Wake Forest women's soccer, who is ranked, as mentioned by JT a little bit earlier. Kevin Boyd, Milwaukee women's soccer. Sean Burke out of Buffalo. Andy Stutz out of Ball State women's soccer. So a couple of MAC coaches there. And then again, Gareth Elliott out of the University of Rhode Island men's soccer. You got to love Maction. That's our favorite here at least on this podcast. You were a Chippewa. You graduated from there. I lasted a year, but that's a combined 5 years at CMU. So
hey, we'll take that.
Get to claim that. So
hey, some people spend like 8 years in college if they're athletes.
I was 5, but anyways, enough of that. Going into our question of the day, what do we got for today, Ryan?
Yeah, question of the day, but before we get to it, Salt Athletic, an official sponsor of us here at NSN. Use promo code NSN15 to save 15% off. Scan that QR code or visit saltathletic.com today. But question of the day, I came up with this yesterday. Is the MLS too easy of a league for these former European players? And I'll just bring a little bit of attention to this. This came to my attention simply because Heung-min Son scored a hat trick. Thomas Mueller scored a hat trick. Both of them have joined within about a month or so of joining the MLS. And I just want to go over a couple numbers before I get your opinion, Nate. So far in the MLS for Heung-min Son, he has played in a total of 5 games started. And 5 total games, 5 goals, 1 assist. I know 3 of them, of course, coming recently. But if we go to Thomas Mueller, 3 matches, 5 goal contributions. And then this stat I think is the most interesting. So if we go to Inter Miami, they never won a trophy. They sat bottom of the MLS. Before Messi arrived, mind you. They won 36% of their games in 121 competitive matches, 43 wins, 59 losses, 19 draws. However, we bring Messi into the equation in July of 2023. Also, Busquets, Jordi Alba in there as well. 56 wins, 23 losses, 25 draws in 104 matches. And I just laid down the stats, so let me know what you think.
Yeah, I mean, people describe it as a retirement league. Yeah, we always make the joke about players who obviously, for one reason or another, once they're done with baseball, they're going to go play like beer league softball, because they still want to get their reps in. They still want to swing the bat. They still want to be a part of something. They still want to participate. I don't know if I would go as far as to say that, but to the people who say that the MLS is not obviously anywhere in the same stratosphere as the most competitive leagues in the world, you're right. And we talked about this yesterday, why it's so attractive to come to America and play. And it's number one, because your price tag is high. They realize that they are still worth a lot of money. And into an American league that has nothing, that has money, that's not really a concern, you're going to take advantage of that, number one. Number two, the ability to live in the United States. That is something that I think a lot of these players want the ability to do, especially in these places that, like in LA, like a Miami. I think that's extremely attractive to European players who realize, hey, maybe I don't have the legs to hang with some of the top European players in the world anymore, whether that be Messi, whether that be any of these other players that you just mentioned. So I think those are two major components. They want to stay involved. They still want to continue to play. They want to do all of those things. But I think more than ever, it's because they realize that the level of competition is just not akin to what they're used to. So I think that plays a role into it. Is it, would I go as far as to say it's a retirement league? No. I mean, we've seen good players come out of the MLS. We've seen players go from MLS to overseas. I mean,
Tyler Adams.
But exactly. But if you have more and more and more and more superstars from Europe coming to the United States to play, by default, I feel as if that might raise the level of competitiveness and parity in Major League Soccer. Would it make it a top league? No, because again, they're not coming here at 22, 23 years old. They're coming here for the swan song of their career. But the more of them that join Major League Soccer, the more relevant the brand becomes. Maybe we're having a separate conversation. So right now, yes, because I think we're so early on that there's not a big enough sample size to get the MLS to the next level. But I do think that is a major reason. It's just not anywhere close. I mean, there's a difference between playing rec league baseball and playing competitively. We all know this, two different ball games. So that's the way that I look at Major League Soccer.
Yeah, and I guess I should have not used the Messi comparison because he's kind of like the greatest player of all time. So of course,
that's something else I was gonna say. Yeah,
that's gonna happen.
Yep.
But I think my take on this is MLS too easy of a league for these former European players. I know Chiellini has come out and said it's not that easy as people think, but it's just. I think it is in a way a little bit easier for them. I think, but at the same time, I also think the non-pressure plays a factor. I mean, I don't like these teams aren't competing or these players aren't competing in Champions League anymore. They're not like these fans are not on them consistently or yelling sacked in the morning to everyone or booing them off the field consistently all the time. Like, it's a different animal in Europe. And I think that can also play a factor is you're just playing free. Like, you're playing as a kid that you once were. And McJack brings up a good point in the chat. He says it's both a farm league and a retirement league at the same time. And I kind of agree with that. And Miguel Almiron is another player that made it from the jump from Atlanta United to Newcastle. So players can make the jump over. I think it is a little bit easier for them. I really do. In MLS, as Americans, I think that's the hardest thing, is to admit that we are not the best at something, and especially when it's homegrown here like the MLS, to admit that this is not the best thing in the world, because we have our 4 leagues are the best in the world. NFL, NHL, NBA, and MLB. Those are the best leagues in the world, and we have them here. And to admit as Americans ourselves that we don't have the best league in the world at a sport, that's the hardest thing for us to admit. I do think it's a little bit easier for these European players that are coming over, but I also think the off-the-field stuff does play a factor in not being mobbed at the grocery store, being able to go to the grocery store, buy your stuff, buy your eggs, buy your yogurts, buy your chicken, and not be mobbed. So, and again, soccer players, they blend in with the crowd in terms of size and height, compared to the other athletes do. So I still think it is a little bit easier for these. Is it too easy? Not necessarily, but it's definitely easier than over in Europe.
Yeah, I would agree with all that. So that's a look at episode 162. A big thank you to everybody who dropped by here today. Woo! We got you got a lot of sound effects on there, man. You got to start dropping them in throughout the. By the way, I very much enjoyed when JT was in the middle of making a point yesterday that you blared the horn.
Oh, it's TikTok again.
Oh, is that TikTok? Yeah, TikTok. Are they giving you gifts on there or something? Are they liking it a billion times?
No, it just says when the live will end.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay. But anyways, we gotta continue to explore all the different sounds and wonderful things.
Hold on, MechCheck says cutting edge dynamic sound effects.
MechCheck, get on the show, man. You got a lot to say.
That'd be sweet.
Wouldn't mind having you on here, man. Maybe you get us down to Minnesota or get us some gear. Like we said, JT does the unboxings. So, I mean, he does roll them out there and show it. So, if you want us to put up some Minnesota United stuff, you do that, man. And then maybe you can come over. I got to see a Detroit City FC game. I've never been.
They're fun.
I've been chomping at the bit.
But what were you saying about the horn yesterday?
Oh, yeah. JT was in the middle of making a point, and you just blared on that thing. It's very funny. It's just saying you got to keep sprinkling in all those different sounds. Maybe cut out to commercial in the middle of a segment a couple of times. You got to keep us on our toes.
Yeah, that was my fault. I did not actually mean to do that.
No, you're good. You're good. But a good conversation here today. Again, our next episode coming up on Monday, 9 a.m. For that one, we have a stacked lineup of coaches every single day of the week. We'll be bringing you a new coach from across the NCAA ranks as we continue to figure out who will emerge next season. There's one last look at who we got again coming up next week. But until we got you guys
$5
$5 foot long. But until we talk to you guys on Monday, no, I want one of those. Pause. But until we talk to you guys on Monday, this has been Inside the Game, episode 162. That's Ryan Glinsky. My name is Nate Wangler. We will chat with you guys coming up Monday at 9 a.m. And until then, have a great weekend, everybody.
Peace.
From the biggest matches to the hottest takes, Jonathan Turner and Nathan Wangler bring you the stories, the analysis, and the edge you won't get anywhere else. Streaming live weekdays at 9 a.m. on YouTube, Roku TV, Facebook, Twitter, and all major platforms. No filters, no fluff, just real talk, real soccer. This is Inside the Game.